Well, it's good to be with all of you. I'm a little nervous. I don't have pictures with Ellen, and as I listen to some of these amazing experiences, you see quite quickly that leadership has many different facets. So obviously, teachers lead in the classroom, coaches lead on the field, and like all of you, some of you have and will lead airmen, and in my world, soldiers into combat. In the world of being a mayor, it's very interesting. I lead an organization of some 2,000 individuals, but also at the same time guide a community of some 200,000 people in a region of some 450,000. And before I get started on just a few quick thoughts that I have on leadership, there was a little bit about my history. I was born and raised here in Spokane. I'm the youngest of 9 in a big Irish Catholic family. When you're the youngest of 9, you're not necessarily in a leadership position, and most of the time it means hand-me-downs and told where to go. Often people say, do we want to call you Dave or David? And I just say, any of them will do, not just the ones my old 6 brothers used to call me. And so as I traveled through life, I left Spokane to get away from this place, I thought, and I went to Boston College and then subsequently served in the United States Army for 9 years. It took me from San Antonio to Schofield Barracks, where like many of you, your lieutenants, led a platoon of some 30 soldiers in the 21st Infantry Division. I left there to be an aide-de-camp to the highest-ranking woman in the military at the time. From there, I came to Fort Lewis, where many of you that have been in the service for some time remember that day, 9/11. I was a captain sitting on I-5, and I had the additional duty of being the base defense commander. A captain that's a medical service officer has no business being the base defense commander, where you have I Corps, you have the 25th Infantry Division, you have the Special Forces and the Ranger Battalion. So I quite quickly relinquished my command to the 4-star general there, the 3-star general there at the time. But I then served continuously for well over a year, and then returned here to Spokane to be in the reserves. I, of all things, then went into the private sector. I ran a company that had 12 tugboats. No, I was in the Army, not the Navy. So I ran that company for a couple years, and then I also went into and served as a senior staff in the United States Congress. But here then begins my story, and maybe 3 anecdotes that I'd like to tell you that prove what I think that especially all of you that are leaders in so many ways really come back to. And that's where I decided after 7 years of serving in Congress, the federal government drove me to run for local government. And I left my job there. I took a leave of absence, and like Tim and others have talked about the support behind us, I came home one day. Actually, we went skiing for 3 days, and I finally decided that I wanted to run for office at 37. I quit my job for 7 months. We lived on savings. I still had car payments, house payments, and my wife and I, knocked on some 22,000 doors. Actually, like many of us would find out, I remember knocking on a door of a man, and our plan was my wife went 3 days beforehand. She'd give him a letter saying, and she had signed it saying, my husband's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And he's going to be knocking on your door in the next couple of days. Will you please talk to him? Well, I still remember going to this door. It was down here in the Latah Valley, and this guy comes up to the door and he goes, I knew you were coming. And he talks to me, and he has all these questions written down, and after he's done, he says, I'll give you a little hint. Don't knock on the door after your wife. I was voting for you when your wife knocked on the door. Now I've talked to you, I'm not going to. I went back to that door the second go around. But let me start now and just put into some parameters what I see and what I have felt over the last several years of what is at the core of leading and how do you continue to lead. And I'd say first and foremost, it is about passion. You've heard these stories today about what's driven people to do what they need to do in some very critical times. And at the core, it's about following your passion. If you're a believer, it is the gifts that God gave you to do and to use those gifts, and they usually follow the passion you have in life. You know, we lost earlier this earlier this week rather, a great leader in this community. The last mayor to be re-elected in Spokane, and a gentleman by Dave Rogers. I commented on in a book that is about the dream he had for Spokane that sits on my desk, and I go through it on a weekly basis. I give it to people. It's called The Fair and the Falls. But it talks about the leadership of several people, but in particular, because of course, as a mayor and a mentor to mine, it talks about Dave Rogers and how to dream big, how to look at something, but at the core, it still goes back to that passion. It is, and often it happens, and as I've talked about it, and even in my own life, I wonder about the notorious idea of being the only re-elected mayor, whether that was a good thing or a bad thing. Because believe it or not, leadership is not a popularity contest. And there's significant times that you're drawn and you're to your core about whether this is the right thing to do, and the only thing you can go back to is that passion. And so, I won the race that first go around. It was not supposed to happen. I lost the primary by 30 points. For those of you that don't know anything about politics, that is significant. It was not the first day, not the second day, but the third day after I got those results. It was the passion and the commitment to this community that I felt in my heart as born and raised here that got me to get back there and for the next 6 weeks have the highest the largest turnaround in state history and ultimately win that election. But then what? I won. I was literally physically scared to death. What do you do? I've never run a city. There's 2,000 employees. There's 82 political appointees. There's 12 cabinet members. Where do you start? Well, I'll tell you quickly, and I don't know whether I realized it at the time. It was as we started to assemble those cabinet members. Many of your supporters come out. Pick me, Mayor. Do this. And those in the political spectrum. I align with you politically. But I quite fundamentally figured out it was about their passion for our city that brought us together. So I brought 12 very diverse, politically, age, backgrounds together, but at the core it was always that passion. And so that passion for the city has drawn us over and over again back to leading the city in some very difficult times. You know, the other really amazing thing is as you assemble a cabinet like that, after you've run an election and drawn on that passion, that when the times get hard, it is, and I have cabinet meetings twice a week, it is that commitment and that vision for our city that brings us back to the core. And that's the second thing I want to talk about, purpose. You know, as I alluded to earlier on, not only do we, as a mayor, lead a workforce of some 2,000 people, but you also guide a city of some 200,000. And sometimes those don't match up. And frankly, not only as mayor, and we're in the executive branch, but there's 7 other elected officials. And how do we bring those people onto the same? But it came, and it kind of came accidentally. We started talking about, well, what is our vision? What is our purpose? What is our end state? For those of you in the military, mission first. What is the mission? And so we started quickly finding out that it really was, how do we become the place where everybody wants to live? Or now, as we say it, how do we become the city of choice? And fundamentally, in that purpose statement, we always go back to it. Would this decision cause somebody to live back in the city or to choose to live in the city? Because we live in an amazing area, and there is a lot of cities in eastern Washington that people could choose. But would they particularly want to live in the city of Spokane? And so we took that not only from my 12 cabinet members, but for the first time ever, 7 other elected officials, we sat down and started asking that question. And for those of you not following local politics, the political spectrum of the 8 elected officials at City Hall is the full spectrum, with many different ideas, many different backgrounds, and whether they were born here, raised here, moved here, everything you couldn't imagine being different. But it was back to that purpose statement. And how do we do that? And how do you unlock the ingenuity and the innovation as long as you set out that purpose? And whether that's in an organization or as you've heard here from so many before me, that the key component is people have a purpose in their life. They know what they want that end state to be. They have the picture about what is that? What am I looking for? And I think that is what is so critical as we talk about leadership, no matter how you apply it. And what you learn here in the military, and whether you decide to leave after 9 years like I did or make a career in it, it still gets back to that having a clear purpose in your own life and then projecting that in leadership to those that lead with you. You know, I have been on Fairchild now, I don't know how many, hundreds and hundreds of times over the last several years, whether it be working in Congress or now as mayor. And I've driven your current commander a little nuts as I've been asking for. I used to go into the White House, and there was this big quote that was there from General Fairchild. And I think as we talk about purpose, it isn't about the past. It's always about the future. Yes, the foundation of the past, the foundation of the achievements in the past, quite frankly, the foundation of the failures in the past. But when you talk about purpose, it's always about the future. And I think this is such an appropriate quote. We cannot for a moment relax because of past achievements. Either we go out to meet the future or it comes to seek us out. You know, General Fairchild said that, and I think it is so clear because he's talking about that purpose. If you don't know where you're going, it's certainly going to come and find you. And unfortunately, if you don't have that purpose, the way it finds you often does not lead you forward. So yes, it is about the past. It is about the past achievements, but purpose is about the future. The final thing I want to talk about is, and again, those of you in the military have heard this before, mission first, people always. It is all about people. It is, and those that you've heard about and heard today are talking about, we out?
Lost the mic.
You lost the mic. So anyway, it is about the people that you serve, the people that you're serving with, and those that you look up to. But, you know, as I found a lot, and especially as we do in government, unfortunately, too much, it is, we need to trust our own folks. And so I have to tell you a little mayor story. You know, we just got through a very difficult winter. And believe it or not, you didn't realize this, or I didn't realize this, but potholes are necessarily probably the biggest issue people face. But actually, one of the other big things that if you want to make sure you don't get reelected, it is to screw around with people's garbage day. Well, at the city, as we seek efficiencies, we went out and hired a consulting firm to tell us, how do we make ourselves more efficient? Well, at the city, we have some 70,000 customers. We have 200,000 people, but 70,000 households. So 70,000 garbage cans times 3. And we brought in this firm, we paid them, and they came back and they gave us their greatest plan. It was going to change the garbage day for some 32,000 people. Well, that's a non-starter. It was going to save 5 garbage routes for us, which is what we were getting after to make sure we provide services to the citizens at the cheapest rate possible. But can you believe that? 30,000, almost half of them. So you know what? Our employees came back and they said, that's all real good. Would you let us get a whack at it? So believe it or not, just within a few weeks, they came back and changed it. They reached the goal, they reached the purpose, they reached the mission of making us more efficient with 5 less routes. Do you know how many garbage days they changed on our citizens? Not 1,000, not 100, not even 10. 0. And they were able to, and as we talk about the people, is you trust your people. And you're able to do that first and foremost if you surround those people, if you're in the ability to appoint people and other leaders. They do that based on the passion that they have for the work they do. They do that because they know what the end state is. They know what the purpose of what they're doing. But that's when you truly then trust those people because they are passionate what they do. They know what the purpose of what they're doing. And then it's quite phenomenal to see what they're able to produce. I'll tell you, as I've served now at the end of my 5th year, it was just a few days ago, I think it was April 4th, that we realized that in my administration, we have 1,000 days left. To some people think that's, whoa, that is a lot. To others, like me, I start getting a little nervous. What do we do? What do we have left to do? How do we prioritize? But it gets back to, and it makes it quite simple. If we're going to be the city of choice and we're passionate about that, those things move to the top of the list. We look at our strategic plan, the first we've ever had, and we know what the end state is. We know what the purpose is. And now all we have to do is sit back and see the innovation from every single one of our amazing employees and, quite frankly, the citizens that bring those solutions to us. But as I started, and as I said that we lost an amazing leader, the last mayor to be reelected and put the city of Spokane on the world stage, I saw a quote, as I often do. I read many of the things that he has said, and I will finish with this. Mayor Rogers said in the early 70s, "Don't take yourself too seriously, because the wisdom of the world doesn't reside in one individual." So as we finish here today, it is quite that yes, you and many of you are in a position of leadership. You have the passion, the purpose, and you reward and honor your people. But at the end of the day, don't take yourself too seriously, because it's through all of those people that you truly are leading. Thank you.